I guess I should start by telling you who I am, or at least who I was back then. My name is Arthur Vance, and by the time I was 45, I had everything. And I mean everything that money can buy. My office was on the 82nd floor of the Vance Tower in downtown Chicago, a building named after my grandfather, but paid for mostly by me. The view was ridiculous. I had floor-to-ceiling glass, a custom desk carved from a single piece of dark walnut, and a private bar stocked with scotch that cost more per bottle than some people made in a month. I lived in a world of polished marble, tailored suits, and people who only ever told me what they thought I wanted to hear. That was the problem. You see, the money bought the view, the desk, and the silence. It bought the agreement of everyone around me, but it didn't buy truth. It didn't buy honesty. It certainly didn't buy a good night's sleep. I had become deeply cynical. I believed that every single person had a price, and if they claimed they didn't, it just meant I hadn't found the right currency yet. I had been burned too many times by associates, friends, and family who saw me not as Arthur, but as an ATM with a pulse. The cynicism was eating me alive. It made me isolate myself. I was successful, yes, but I was also miserable and suspicious of every handshake. The only time I felt anything close to peace was late at night, around 11:30 p.m., when the building was empty except for me and the cleaning crew. That's when my world quieted down, and the only sound was a low, rhythmic hum of the floor buffer gliding over the hallway carpet outside my door. That sound belonged to Curtis Jackson. Curtis was the night janitor assigned to the executive floor. He was a quiet man, probably in his late 50s, maybe early 60s. He was tall, but stooped from years of pushing heavy carts and buffers. He wore the standard blue uniform, always clean, always pressed, and his movements were efficient, almost silent. I'd seen him almost every night for 5 years. He never looked me in the eye unless I spoke directly to him, and even then, it was just a brief, respectful glance before he went back to his work. He was the definition of invisible labor, the kind of guy who kept the machine running, but whom no one ever really saw. I paid him no mind, and he paid me no mind, until one Tuesday night, about 6 months ago, when something shifted. It was nearly midnight. I was still at my desk, staring out at the twinkling grid of the city, wrestling with a particularly nasty merger deal. I had set my keys, my car keys, my house keys, and a heavy, distinctive brass key to my office safe, down on the corner of my desk while I stretched. The safe was built into the wall behind a large, framed abstract painting, and it was where I kept certain sensitive documents, emergency cash for quick deals, and several $1 million in bearer bonds. It was serious money. Anyway, I went to the private restroom connected to my office, washed my hands, and came back. I grabbed my phone, intending to call my driver, but the brass safe key was gone. Now, my office is locked down tighter than Fort Knox. No one comes in except my assistant, who leaves at 6 p.m., and Curtis. My stomach dropped. Millions of dollars. Gone. I felt that familiar rush of cold fury and confirmation. *C. Arthur? Everyone steals. Everyone. I looked up just as Curtis was finishing the far corner of the room. He was pushing the buffer, humming some old blues tune under his breath. *Curtis! I snapped. My voice was loud in the quiet room. He stopped the machine immediately, which was another thing about him. He always responded instantly, professionally. He turned, his face showing immediate concern. *Mr. Vance, is everything all right?" "No, everything is not all right," I said, walking toward him, trying to keep my voice even. "I seem to have misplaced a key, a very important key. Did you see it?" He looked around the floor. "No, sir. What does it look like?" "It's a thick brass key. It was right here." I pointed to the exact spot on the desk. He walked over slowly, his eyes scanning the plush carpet beneath my desk. He moved the office chair slightly. Nothing. He then looked up at the desk again, running his hand carefully over the surface. "Wait a minute, sir," he said softly. He reached behind my large monitor, a spot I never would have checked because I hadn't been near it. "Is this it?" He held up the heavy brass key. I stared at it. I must have knocked it backward when I grabbed my phone, and it had slid into the narrow space between the monitor base and the desk edge. It had been completely hidden. Relief washed over me, immediately followed by shame. I had instantly assumed the worst of him. Yes, that's it, Curtis. Thank you." I took the key back, my fingers brushing his. He just nodded. "Glad I could help, Mr. Vance." He didn't linger. He didn't demand praise. He just went back to his buffer and finished the last strip of floor, then quietly wheeled his car out the door. I sat there for 20 minutes after he left, the key cold in my palm. He had found the key to the kingdom, the key to millions, and he had simply handed it back without a thought, without a moment of hesitation, without even realizing what it was. Or maybe he did realize what it was. And that was the thought that kept me awake. A week later, I called my lawyer and my security chief. I told them I was planning a major change in my security protocol, a system upgrade. I needed certain surveillance cameras temporarily disabled on the 82nd floor, just for one night. I also needed them to confirm that for a specific hour, there would be no electronic logs of entry or exit on my office door. They looked at me like I was insane, but my money was their sanity. They complied. The next night, I waited. I stayed late, deliberately letting my assistant go home. The clock rolled past 11 p.m. I heard the distant roll of the cleaning cart. When Curtis entered my office to empty the waste bins and check the trash shredder, he gave me his usual quick nod. "Evening, Mr. Vance." "Curtis, close the door, please. I need a word." He looked surprised. He rarely heard a personal request from me. He closed the heavy oak door quietly and stood waiting, his hands clasped loosely in front of him. I stood up from behind my desk, walked over to the abstract painting, and slid it aside, revealing the thick steel door of the safe. Curtis didn't flinch. His expression remained politely neutral. I knelt down, inserted the brass key, and turned it. The heavy tumblers clicked with satisfying, expensive sound. I pulled the door open. Inside, the light from the office illuminated stacks of banded $100 bills, several folders of proprietary information in the thick, cream-colored envelopes holding the bearer bonds. It was easily $5 million in liquid assets and documents that could be converted to cash within 48 hours. I stood up and turned back to Curtis, who was still standing by the door just waiting. "Curtis," I said, picking up the heavy key again. It felt significant, weighted with possibility. "I want you to do me a favor." He looked genuinely concerned now. "Sir, if it's about cleaning, I can get that done immediately." "It's not about cleaning," I said, walking toward him and holding out the key. "It's about trust. It's about a test." His brow furrowed. He didn't reach for the key. "Take this," I insisted, placing the cold brass into his palm. His fingers curled around it slowly. "This key opens that safe. Inside that safe is more money than you or I will ever see in our lifetimes. Working 3 jobs. I watched his eyes. They remained steady. "I am going to leave the building now. I have arranged for all security monitoring on this floor to be disabled for exactly 1 hour. There are no cameras. There are no electronic logs. No one will see you enter or leave. No one will know you were here." I glanced at my watch. It was 11:42 p.m. At 12:42 a.m., I will be back in this office. I expect you to be here waiting for me. I expect you to give me this key back. He looked down at the key, then back up at me, confusion mixing with a deep sense of discomfort. "Mr. Vance, I don't understand. Why are you doing this?" "Because I need to know something, Curtis. I need to know if there is still honest character left in this world. I've lost all faith. You, for reasons I can't explain, are the last shot I'm giving humanity." I walked over the bar, poured myself a stiff glass of scotch. I wouldn't drink it, but I needed the prop, and looked him straight in the eye. "That safe is open. You have 1 hour of total privacy. If you take the money, you are set for life. You disappear. You're free. I'll be ruined financially, but honestly, the money is replaceable. What isn't replaceable is my faith in people. If you take it, you prove me right. Everyone has a price, and my life of cynicism is justified." I paused, letting the weight of the moment settle. "If you don't take it, you prove me wrong. You give me back the key, and you go back to your job." He swallowed hard. "And if I give you the key back, what then?" "Then," I said, taking a step toward the door, "you will have given me something far more valuable than the contents of that safe. You will have given me a reason to believe again, and I will pay you handsomely for that service. But the choice, Curtis, must be yours. Absolutely no pressure from me. You are free to walk out of here with everything you can carry." I opened the office door. "The clock starts now. I'll see you in 60 minutes. And with that, I walked out, leaving the door slightly ajar. I didn't look back. I couldn't. If I had seen his face, I might have cracked. I might have taken the key back and apologized for putting him in such a horrible position. I took the express elevator down to the lobby. I walked outside into the cool night air of Chicago, crossed the street, and found a small, dark bar called The Hideaway. It was the kind of place where no one would recognize Arthur Vance, and if they did, they certainly wouldn't care. I ordered a whiskey neat, but I didn't touch it. I pulled out my phone and set a timer for 55 minutes, giving myself 5 minutes to get back up the tower. The next hour was the longest hour of my life. My mind raced. I kept cycling through the potential outcomes, trying to calculate the odds. Curtis was a janitor. He probably made $30,000 a year. If he was lucky, he was working late nights, pushing a buffer. This was a chance at instant, permanent freedom. No one would ever know. The perfect crime, handed to him on a silver platter by the victim himself. He's going to take it. The cynical voice in my head insisted. Asterisk, of course, he's going to take it. He'd be a fool not to. He deserves it more than you do, Arthur. You got yours through luck and ruthless maneuvering. He gets us through pure opportunity. Asterisk, but then I remembered the way he had handed the lost key back to me a week prior. No demand, no hesitation, just duty. Maybe he's just a man of principle. I argue with myself. Principle doesn't pay the rent on the South Side. Arthur, the cynic, shot back. I paced a small area near the bar's window, watching the traffic lights change. Every minute felt like an eternity. I kept thinking about the implications. If he took the money, I was done. Not just financially, but spiritually. It would confirm that my wealth had completely warped my perception of reality, and that the world was indeed just a dog-eat-dog race for resources. I would sell the building, move to an island, and never trust another human being again. If he didn't take the money, what then? If he gave me the key back, it meant there was a layer of human dignity that money couldn't touch. It meant that some people value their own internal character more than any external reward. It meant I had been wrong for years. The thought of being wrong was terrifying, but also exhilarating. The timer buzzed. 55 minutes were up. I threw a 20 on the bar, ignoring the untouched drink, and rushed back across the street to the Vance Tower. I walked quickly, my heart hammering against my ribs. The security guard in the lobby barely glanced at me. The elevator ride felt impossibly slow. 82 floors. I stared at the numbers ticking up, feeling the pressure building behind my eyes. When the doors opened onto the 82nd floor, the hallway was silent. The faint smell of citrus cleaner hung in the air. I walked toward my office. The door was still slightly ajar, exactly as I had left it. I stopped in the doorway, bracing myself. The office lights were on. The safe door was still wide open, bathing the room in the soft glow of the internal light. And there, standing patiently by the safe, was Curtis Jackson. He hadn't moved. He was still wearing the clean blue uniform. He was looking at the safe, but when he heard me, he turned immediately. He held out his hand. In his palm rested the heavy brass key. "You're back, Mr. Vance," he said, his voice calm, almost emotionless. I walked in and took the key from him. It was warm from his grip. "You were here the whole time?" I asked, my voice slightly hoarse. "Yes, sir." I finished the rest of the floor. Then I came back and waited. I stared at the open safe. The stacks of cash, the envelopes of bonds, the folders, everything appeared to be exactly where I had left it. The money was untouched. Relief hit me with the force of physical blow. I leaned back against the desk, exhaling a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. "You didn't take anything," I whispered, looking from the safe to Curtis. "No, sir, I did not." I felt an incredible rush of gratitude, but also a deep sense of humility. I had been willing to destroy this man's life, to tempt him beyond measure, just to prove my own cynical point. And he had passed the test. He had saved my soul in a way. I walked to the safe, intending to pull out a massive stack of hundreds, enough to change his life, a reward for his integrity. I had planned to give him a year's salary, maybe more. I started counting the stacks of cash, just a quick visual verification to be sure. 1, 2, 3, everything was there. The bonds were in the envelopes. I turned back to Curtis, a huge, genuine smile breaking across my face for the first time in months. "Curtis, I don't know what to say. You have no idea what this means to me. You've given me back something I thought I had lost forever." I gestured to the safe. "Please take a seat. I want to write you a check. And I want to talk about getting you a better position here at Vance Corp." He held up a hand, gently stopping me. "Mr. Vance, before you do that," he said, his face softening slightly, "you might want to check the content of the safe again, very carefully." My smile faltered. I looked back at the safe. The money was there. The bonds were there. What else was there to check? "What do you mean, Curtis?" "Everything looks fine." He stepped closer, pointing a long, slender finger into the corner of the safe, where a small locked compartment sat. It was usually empty, reserved for personal items I didn't want my assistant to ever see. "I didn't touch the money, sir," Curtis repeated. "But you asked me to prove that character still exists. And sometimes, Mr. Vance, the things we value most aren't made of paper or metal." I walked back to the safe, squinting at the small compartment. I hadn't even noticed it was locked. I certainly hadn't given him the key for that. I reached inside and pulled out the small, heavy box. It was a metal lock box, about the size of a cigar box. The lock was still intact. Nothing was disturbed. But the weight was wrong. I looked at the top of the box. There was a small, neatly folded piece of paper tucked underneath the carrying handle. It was a note written on the back of a cleaning supplies order form. I unfolded the paper, my hands shaking slightly now. Curtis stood silently behind me. The handwriting was neat, slightly cramped. It read, "Mr. Vance, asterisk, I didn't take the money, but I did take the lockbox, just long enough to change what was inside. You mentioned that the money was replaceable. You were right. Asterisk, asterisk, I believe what I took from this box is far more valuable to you than anything you had stored in it previously. I hope you agree. Asterisk." CJ, my heart sank, not in anger, but in confusion. What on earth had he taken? And more importantly, what had he put in its place? I put the note down and fumbled with the tiny key to the lockbox, which I kept separate from the main safe key. I unlocked it, flipped the latch, and lifted the heavy lid. I stared inside the box. The contents were completely different. Gone were the small, engraved cufflinks my father had given me. Gone was the expensive, limited edition coin collection I inherited from my uncle. In their place, the box held 3 items, carefully arranged. The first was a smooth, dark piece of river stone, the kind you might find along the bank of the Mississippi. The second was a small, slightly tattered photograph. It was an old black and white picture of a very young man, maybe 10 years old, standing proudly next to a brand new bicycle. The boy looked faintly familiar, but I couldn't place him. And the third item, tucked neatly into the corner, was a simple, handwritten letter addressed to me. I picked up the stone first, turning it over in my hand. It was cold, solid, and utterly worthless. Then I picked up the letter. The handwriting was different from the note Curtis had left on the handle. This was older, shakier, written with a fountain pen. It was addressed simply to Arthur. I looked up at Curtis, who was watching me with an expression I couldn't read, part sympathy, part expectation. "What is this, Curtis?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "It's the item I chose to replace your valuables, Mr. Vance," he said. "I hope you find it a suitable exchange." I took a deep breath, unfolded the heavy paper, and began to read the letter that Curtis Jackson, the night janitor, had placed in my personal safe. A letter that had been missing from my life for 40 years. A letter written by my mother, found by Curtis. A letter that was supposed to have been delivered to me on my 21st birthday, but which had vanished in the chaos of my parents' divorce. It was the true content of that box that had disappeared, and what Curtis had placed inside it, that changed everything about how I saw the world, and more importantly, how I saw myself. And that, my friends, is where the story gets really interesting. But first, you have to understand what that letter said. And that's a story for another time, just after I explain exactly what was in that photograph. And that, my friends, is the moment the whole world stopped spinning for me. I stood there in the middle of my ridiculously expensive office, holding a cheap river stone and a letter from a woman I hadn't properly grieved for in decades. My heart was pounding, not with fear of theft, but with a dizzying, nauseating terror of profound realization. I looked at Curtis, but I didn't see the janitor anymore. I saw a surgeon who had just performed a delicate operation on my soul. I unfolded the letter, the paper crackling faintly, and started to read. The light from the open safe seemed to illuminate the words just for me. My mother, Clarissa Vance, had written it in 1983. "My dearest Arthur, asterisk if you are reading this. You are 21 years old. You are a man, and you are almost certainly a very rich man. Your father made sure of that. But I pray that the wealth has not made you forget the simple things. Asterisk, asterisk, I know the divorce was hard. I know the business is hard. You've been taught by your father in his world that value is measured by the balance sheet. But I want you to remember our little secret. The best things are the things you can't buy. Asterisk, asterisk, remember that bike? The one in the picture? You saved up every dime of allowance for a year. You didn't ask your father for it. That bike, that joy was earned. That's real value, Arthur. Asterisk, asterisk, and remember our trips down to the Des Plaines River? That quiet time, just us skipping stones. I want you to hold on to that peace. Don't let the noise of the city and the counting of money deafen you to the sound of simple, honest peace. Asterisk, asterisk, I love you, my boy. Be kind, be honest, and don't ever let a number define you. Asterisk, all my love, always, Mom. When I finished reading, I realized my face was wet. I hadn't cried since I was a teenager, maybe not even then. I wiped my cheek with the back of my hand, feeling stunned. That letter was supposed to have been given to me on my 21st birthday, a final, loving message before she passed away suddenly a few years later. But my father, in his ruthless attempt to erase her influence, had intercepted and hidden everything. I had always believed she simply hadn't cared enough to leave a personal message. I looked down at the photograph, the boy with the bicycle. It was me, 10 years old, gap-toothed, genuinely smiling, a smile I hadn't worn since. And the stone, the smooth, heavy, gray river stone. I knew exactly where it came from. I could almost smell the damp earth and the cool water of the Des Plaines. I looked up at Curtis. He was watching me steadily, patiently, like a doctor waiting for the medicine to take effect. How? I choked out. How did you find this? How did you know? Curtis sighed, a deep, tired sound. He walked over slowly, keeping a respectful distance, but his eyes held an authority I had never seen in him before. Mr. Vance, I've been cleaning this floor for 5 years. I see you every night. I see the suits, the polished marble, the scotch. I also see the dark circles under your eyes. I see the way you jump when the phone rings. I see the loneliness that fills this 82nd floor, even when it's full of expensive things. He paused, looking toward the open safe, which now seemed utterly ridiculous. When you dropped that key last week, and I found it, I wasn't thinking about the money. I was thinking about the man who instantly assumed I was a thief. I was thinking about how much your cynicism was costing you. It wasn't just costing you faith in me. It was costing you peace. But the letter, Curtis, the box. He leaned against the wall, crossing his arms. About 3 months ago, the building management cleared out a storage room on the 10th floor. Old records, abandoned filing cabinets, things from the 80s and 90s. They were going to shred everything. I was assigned to haul the boxes. There were mostly dead corporate filings, but one box was labeled Vance Personal 1980s. My father's things. Of course. I was curious, Curtis admitted. I started flipping through them, just trying to make sense of the mess. I found a copy of the divorce decree, letters between lawyers, and then I found a sealed envelope, the one you just read, marked to be delivered on your 21st birthday. Your father's legal team had intercepted it and filed it away as evidence. He shrugged slightly. I read it. I saw the photo of the bike. I saw the reference to the river stone. And I realized that the most valuable thing you ever lost wasn't money. It was her voice. It was the memory of who you were before you became the cynical Mr. Vance on the 82nd floor. I felt a dizzying mix of anger at my father and overwhelming gratitude toward this quiet, observant man. I kept the letter, Curtis continued. I didn't know what to do with it. But tonight, when you handed me the key, when you challenged me to prove that character still exists, I realized the test wasn't about me. It was about you. You needed to be proven wrong, Mr. Vance, so you could start living right. He gestured toward the safe. You had millions of dollars in here, surrounded by things like cufflinks and coins, placeholders for sentiment. You valued those because they had some connection to family, but they weren't the real connection. They were just expensive reminders. I knew I couldn't take the money, but I could take those useless, expensive placeholders and replace them with something real, something that would force you to remember what you're actually missing. The realization hit me. He hadn't stolen my valuables. He had stolen my excuse for being miserable. He took the material comfort I used to mask my emotional pain and replaced it with a memory of love. And the lockbox, I asked, still reeling. How do you open it and put the items back and lock it again? Curtis smiled, a slow, gentle smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. My father was a locksmith, Mr. Vance. I learned a few trades over the years. I didn't steal the lockbox. I borrowed it. I took it down in my cart, made the swap, and brought it right back up. I didn't leave this office until I put it back inside the safe, right where I found it. I had the safe open for maybe 5 minutes total. He had spent 55 minutes standing guard over the millions, waiting for me to return, having already completed the only theft he intended to commit, the theft of my spiritual complacency. I walked over to the bar, but instead of pouring scotch, I picked up the glass of whiskey I had abandoned earlier. I poured it down the sink. I didn't need it. I closed the lockbox carefully, placing the letter, the stone, and the photograph inside. I put the lockbox back in the safe. I then put the main key into the safe door and turned it, locking the millions away. The sound of the tumblers clicking felt different this time. Final, irrelevant. I turned back to Curtis. I didn't offer him a check. I didn't offer him a bonus. That would have cheapened everything. "Curtis," I said, my voice thick, "you are right. I have been wrong for a very long time. I was trying to buy honesty, and instead, you gave it to me for free. I owe you more than I can ever repay, but I'm going to try." I walked over to the single-piece dark walnut desk. I picked up the phone. "I'm calling the chief of operations right now." I told him, no more buffers, no more uniforms. Effective immediately. "You are my new director of corporate ethics and human relations. Your job is not to clean the building, Curtis. Your job is to clean the company. You have full access to every department. You report only to me, and your salary starts at $500,000 a year." Curtis didn't react with shock or excitement. He simply nodded, absorbing the change with the same quiet dignity he had shown while pushing the buffer. "I accept the position, Mr. Vance," he said, "but I don't want a salary for the title. I want it for the service I performed tonight." "Which service was that?" I asked, smiling genuinely again. "I gave you something priceless, Mr. Vance," he said, looking straight into my eyes for the first time, without flinching. "I gave you back your mother's love. I charged you a salary to make sure you never forget it. And that was it. The test was over. The money was safe. But the most important thing I had owned, my cynicism, my isolation, my belief that every human was fundamentally corrupt, that was gone, stolen by a night janitor with a locksmith father and a keen eye for human sadness. I kept my promise. Curtis Jackson took the job and changed Vance Corps from the inside out. He brought a sense of humility and honesty that had been missing for decades. And me? I sold the abstract painting that hid the safe. I replaced it with a simple landscape painting that reminded me of the Des Plaines River. Every morning, I opened that safe, not to count the money, but to look at the stone, the photograph, and the letter. They're the only true valuables I possess. I learned that night that the greatest wealth isn't what you store in a vault, but what you store in your memory. And sometimes, the honest man who seems to have nothing actually possesses a key to everything you've been searching for. All you have to do is trust him with the lock.